Welcome to Collector Chronicles. It's the countdown for the Great Eclipse of 2024. I was there for the 2017 eclipse. What's interesting is the paths of the eclipse, as many people know, has an X marks the spot right there in the middle. And it just so happens to be where I live and where I'm from. So in 2017, I made a pilgrimage to view the eclipse along the Mississippi River. And on Monday, I'm going to go back in that same area to watch it again. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me. This video is pretty short, but I'm going to talk about some of the history of that area. It's pretty interesting, the area where the convergence is going to be, because it has a lot of cataclysmic events surrounding it. So there's a lot of YouTube videos about prophecy and about strange things going on and dates lining up and everything. I'm not going to get so much into that. I don't really have to, because there's another story that's kind of overlooked. And I would say the story goes back to 1673, when the French Jesuit missionaries Marquette and Juliet mapped the Mississippi River. And they went from the Great Lakes down through the Mississippi River Valley. And when they got to an area which is now Alton, they ran into something pretty interesting. So Marquette and Juliet, this is early depictions of them, classic depictions. There they are along the Mississippi River with their guides. When they got to Alton, they ran into something called the Pyasa, or at least that's what early accounts were. It was these paintings carved on the rock, on the cliffs there along the river. And there was actually two of them, and they remarked in their journal how these were very intricately painted. Now, this is a 19th century depiction of the event or of the Pyasa. So we really don't know exactly what they look like. I think he did draw in his journal a depiction of them, but he noted that these things were so intricately painted that a Florentine artist would have been able to, it was that level of skill. And they were at a place that was like inaccessible also to get to. But one thing that was interesting was that the Indians and Native Americans wanted nothing to do with these things. When they went past them, they would shoot blow darts or arrows in their direction. They were afraid of these things. So I have a theory of who painted them. I think it was the Chinese. That's a whole other story. But what's interesting is with these Pyasa, in later times, the Pyasa was repainted, and this is the modern depiction that's there currently. The original place where the Pyasa was, it was quarried away, and the whole story of the Pyasa was kind of embellished and kind of lost in time. Originally, I don't think it even had wings, even though people think of it as a Pyasa bird. But the reason I'm bringing up the Pyasa is as they went south, this was kind of like a harbinger of the type of things that they ran into. When they got further south, Marquette and Juliet got to a place which is called Grand Tower. It was called Devil's Tower for a long time, and it's a place that I went to view the eclipse at Grand Tower, Illinois. There's actually Tower Rock is on the Missouri side, and it looks like this. So this was another thing that the Indians wanted nothing to do with. They said that the Great Manitou lives on top of this thing, this Tower Rock. And the Marquette and Juliet, or Juliet, thought that maybe it was because of strong currents and people got, killed in the river, and that's maybe why they're afraid of it. In the early 1800s, late 1700s, there was actually river pirates on top of this thing. This was a really dangerous area in Illinois, and this was a depiction from around the mid 1800s. And there was another area, another feature, which was called the Devil's Backbone, Devil's Bake Oven, which is, I think actually, this is the Devil's Bake Oven, and then maybe this is Tower Rock down here. But anyway, we might go down there to see the eclipse, and we can get an on-site assessment of the surrounding countryside. So there's two things that were kind of like evil spirits, kind of connected to this area. Another thing is the Great New Madrid Earthquake, and that was down in this area as well, New Madrid, Missouri. And in 1811, Tecumseh, this tribal leader, was trying to unite tribes, and he was frustrated that they didn't want to unite against the Americans. He was aligned with the British. And there's a whole thing about his prophecy of saying that if they don't unite, he's going to go home and stomp his feet and their lodges are going to fall down or something. And around that same time, there was the New Madrid Earthquake. And it was a cataclysmic event you can read about. Many people know about it. The Mississippi River actually flowed backwards, and there was a waterfall in the river. It was just, if that kind of earthquake happened now along the New Madrid fault line with that magnitude, it would be like extreme amounts of destruction and death, because 1811, there wasn't really a lot of people down in that area. But there was a comet that was also seen before the earthquake. So there's a lot of these things that are kind of interesting, that are lining up with this eclipse, and a lot of it centers on this area historically. Another thing, probably the last thing that I'm going to touch on here, was the city of Kaskaskia. Now, Kaskaskia was in Illinois, also in that area, and it was along the river, and it had the Mississippi River on one side and the Kaskaskia River on the other side. And it was actually an old French village along the river dating back to the 1700s. And then it was the capital of Illinois at the time of statehood in 1818, when it became a state. And the river, the Mississippi River, started to flow into, in this lithograph or engraving, the Mississippi River would have been out in this direction. This is looking west, and that's Missouri. This is Illinois, where we were. And the river actually flowed in through here and washed the entire island away. It washed the whole town away. It was really kind of weird how it happened. Here's a whole collage of different images of Kaskaskia. And this would have been, again, from the Illinois bluff looking toward Missouri, looking west. And all this was washed away. And it took place over the course of years in the 1880s. Little by little, the land was cut away, and all these historic buildings were washed into the river and gone forever. So you can go there and still go to the place where it overlooks it, and there's like a bunch of plaques with poems and everything. But what's interesting is when you go there, they have like an interpretive map. And this right here was this state house from like 1818, where a lot of decisions were made, and a lot of famous people were probably within this building, and people were taking pictures of it. And by like 1900, it fell into the river. So in like the 1890s, this is what it looked like. And then in the like 1902, I think, it started to fall in like this, and looked like kind of like a dollhouse. This is a really famous photograph. So I actually have a piece of this state house. I actually got it in 2018. I found it exactly 200 years after the state Illinois became a state. So it's kind of weird how that all happened. And I actually got an interest in this whole area around 2012, and something has been drawing me back to this area. There's treasure in this area. There's all kinds of really interesting stories, and it's a really overlooked, interesting area, and we're going to be going down there and perhaps taking you along. Here's another thing that's pretty interesting. This is a depiction from the 1850s. This is one of the mounds, probably over at Cahokia, looking at the Mississippi River. Kind of like a fanciful, idyllic scene of what they thought Indians did in their free time or whatever. So anyway, that's my little presentation. We're going to see what happens on Monday, but it's just really, really fascinating that all these things lining up. What are the chances that the eclipse happens and converges on this area where you have Kaskaskia washing into the river, the New Madrid earthquake, you have the Grand Tower, which this thing, I mean, whenever I saw a picture of this thing, it kind of reminded me of like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I never even heard about this thing. And I found about this when I was like 30 years old. And I became obsessed with it. I've never actually been here. but I know an archaeologist, a prominent archaeologist, who's been at the top of this thing. So this is also in the area where we might go. There's a few different candidates for where I'm going to go to view the eclipse, and I'm actually going to be live, and I'm going to film it. When it's going to be like 4 minutes, I think. So I was there for the 2017 one. I'm going to be there for the 2024 one, and I'm going to have the relic of Cassia State House, and I'm going to actually reunite it with the ground. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and found it interesting, and stay tuned.